The year is 1932. Scientists around the world have been trying to crack the Enigma code for nearly a decade. The German Enigma machine produces an unbreakable encryption. Spies come up empty-handed. Military leaders shake their heads in defeat. It's virtually impossible. But you know who doesn't know the word impossible? You guessed it, the Aztecs. In this 60-second episode of Aztec Chinampas, we're going to cover 3 mind-blowing facts about the ancient people of the Valley of Mexico. Stick around, it now. 1. We'll talk about how they created portable floating gardens. At No. 2. We'll explore how they predicted the end of the world. And finally, at number 3, we'll discover why historians believe the Aztecs were a victim of Viking genocide. Coming up next on Aztec Chinampas. A sacred island located in the middle of Lake Texcoco, Chinampa is where the legend of the Aztec Empire began. The legend has it that in the 13th century, the nomadic Mexico tribe had a vision from their god, Huitzilopochtli, who told them to travel to the center of a lake and build a new home. After a long journey, the Mexica came across a small island in the middle of the lake and saw an eagle perched on it. Cactus devouring a snake and its beak. This was exactly what the god had promised. And so the Mexicans settled down right there and then founded the city of Tenochtitlan. The island of Chinampas was not very big, and soon the growing population of the city needed more land. So the Aztecs did something very clever. They started building floating gardens. Chinampas are essentially platforms made out of reeds and vegetation anchored to the lake bed with stones and then covered with fertile soil, where crops could be planted. The Chinampas would float on the surface of the water and were connected to each other by canals that were used for transportation. They even built special boats to harvest the crops from the Chinampas. These boats had baskets attached to the front to collect the vegetables and fruit. The Chinampas were not just a solution to the lack of space, but they also provided a steady source of food for the growing population. Moreover, the Chinampas played an important role in the religious beliefs of the Aztecs. The Aztecs believed that the island of Chinampa was the center of the universe, and the floating gardens were a representation of the sky, the earth, and the underworld. The canoes that they used to travel through the canals were seen as a way to navigate between the different levels of the cosmos. But the Chinampas were not the only impressive feat of engineering of the Aztecs. They also built pyramids that reached heights of over 200 feet and temples that were decorated with intricate carvings and paintings. They also developed a sophisticated system of aqueducts to bring water from the lake to the city, and a network of ball courts where they played a game that involved a rubber ball and 2 teams of players trying to score by hitting the ball through a stone hoop. One of the most remarkable things about the Aztecs is that they were able to achieve all of this without using any metals. Their tools and weapons were made out of obsidian, a type of volcanic glass that they obtained by exploiting a nearby volcano. They also used wood, bone, and other materials to create everything else they needed. Despite their lack of metal, the Aztecs were fierce warriors and they eventually conquered large parts of Mesoamerica. They were also highly skilled astronomers and mathematicians, and they developed a unique calendar system that was remarkably accurate. Unfortunately, their empire was eventually destroyed by the Spanish conquistadors who were led by Cortez. However, their legacy lives on in the ruins of their great cities and in the traditions of the people who live in the Valley of Mexico today. Now let's move on to fact No. 2, the Aztec long count calendar. Have you ever wondered how the Aztecs kept track of time? Well, they had a unique and fascinating way of doing it. They used a system of calendars that consisted of 3 main components: the solar calendar, the ritual calendar, and the long count calendar. Each of these calendars had its own cycle and counting system, but they were all interconnected and used for different purposes. The solar calendar was used to keep track of the days of the year, and it consisted of 365 days divided into 18 months of 20 days each plus 5 additional days at the end of the year, known as the Weihing. The ritual calendar, on the other hand, was used for religious purposes and it had a cycle of 260 days. It was used to determine when important religious events would occur, and was based on the movements of the planets Venus and Mars. However, it's the long count calendar that's truly fascinating. This calendar was used to count time at a much larger scale, up to 7,000 years and even further. It had a system of 13 numbers from 0 to 12, which was probably influenced by the fact that the Aztecs believed that the number 13 held a special significance. Unlike the base 10 system used in most of the world today, the Aztec system was more complex and difficult to understand. What makes the Aztec long count calendar truly remarkable is that it accurately predicted the end of the world. According to the Aztec calendar, the current era began on August 11th, 3114 BC and would end on December 21st, 2012. This day was seen as the end of time and the beginning of a new era. Of course, the world didn't actually end in 2012, but the prediction made by the Aztec calendar is still remarkable, considering that it was made centuries ago without any modern technology. It shows the advanced knowledge that the Aztecs had about astronomy and mathematics, and their ability to make accurate predictions about the future. Unfortunately, like many aspects of Aztec culture, their knowledge was nearly lost forever when the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century. They actively worked to destroy the Aztec religion and replace it with Christianity. Many Aztec artifacts, including the long count calendar, were either destroyed or taken to Europe, where they remain to this day. Now let's move on to fact no. 3. Did you know that according to some theories, the Aztecs were almost wiped out by Vikings? Crazy, right? But stay with me because there's evidence to support this theory. Let me tell you about the mysterious death of an estimated 3 million Aztecs. In 1520, when Hernan Cortez and his conquistadors arrived in the Valley of Mexico, the Aztec Empire was at its peak. The capital city of Tenochtitlan was one of the largest cities in the world, with a population of over 400,000 people. The Aztec emperor at the time was Moctezuma II, who was considered a god among his people. But despite the grandeur of the Aztec Empire, within just a few years, an estimated 3 million Aztecs died, which was 90% of the entire population. This mass death occurred during the Spanish conquest of Mexico, which was led by Hernan Cortez. Cortez and his men arrived in Mexico in 1519 and quickly made alliances with some of the Aztec Empire as enemies, such as the Tlaxcalans. With the help of these allies, the conquistadors were able to defeat the Aztecs in battle and capture Tenochtitlan in 1521. There are several theories as to why so many Aztecs died during the conquest. One theory is that the Aztecs were victims of genocide at the hands of the Spanish conquistadors. The conquistadors were ruthless, and they killed anyone who resisted the Spanish conquest. They also brought with them diseases such as smallpox and measles, to which the Aztecs had no immunity. This theory is supported by the fact that the Aztecs were able to hold off the conquistadors for several years, but ultimately succumbed to their superior weapons and tactics. But there is another theory that suggests that the Vikings were responsible for the downfall of the Aztecs. This theory is based on the fact that there are similarities between the accounts of Viking exploration in the Americas and the Spanish conquest of Mexico. Both accounts describe vast empires with great cities and a high level of technology. Both also describe the use of ships and seafaring skills to explore and conquer new lands. Some historians believe that the Vikings may have traveled to the Americas long before Christopher Columbus, and that they may have had a significant impact on the indigenous populations. In fact, there are some archaeological sites in North America that contain artifacts that are similar to those found in Scandinavia. For example, there are petroglyphs in Utah that are similar to Viking ruins, and there are also some skeletal remains that have been found in North America that bear a striking resemblance to the physical characteristics of the Vikings. There is also evidence to suggest that the Vikings had a sophisticated understanding of navigation and astronomy, which would have allowed them to travel across the Atlantic Ocean They also had seafaring ships that were capable of long-distance travel. It is entirely possible that the Vikings made it to the Americas and interacted with the indigenous populations, including the Aztecs. In fact, some historians argue that the similarities between the accounts of Viking exploration in the Americas and the Spanish conquest of Mexico are too great to be just coincidental. Could it be that the Vikings played a role in the downfall of the Aztecs? It's an intriguing theory, but ultimately we may never know for sure. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode of Aztec Chinampas, don't forget to hit subscribe for more amazing stories. Thanks for watching.